Thank you, Mike, for joining us with Gulf Business. We are at Cityscape Global. It's really looking great today. So, Mike, how does Cityscape Global align with Saudi Arabia's broader real estate built environment goals? For example, under Vision 2030, and how did that shape this year's agenda?
Rajiv, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. Gulf Business always tracks some of our events, and uh, I'm glad that you've seen that the event is looking good, as you said. Look, we are so pleased with the standard of this event. You asked me about the Vision 2030 agenda and how this particular event tracks with that. Well, all of the Tahaluf events that we do, they all deliberately align with the strategic priorities of the government. So whether you're talking, breakthrough technology, in AI, in cybersecurity, in fintech, which we have already covered with, some of our shows like Leap, with Money 2020, with Deep Fest, with Black Hat, or you're talking about, Saudi Arabia becoming a major international hub for medical care, but also for medical innovation, and also for biotech innovation and pharmaceutical manufacturing. That's happening now as well across several of our shows too. And you can see that at Global Health Exhibition, which we did last week, and also at CPHI, and then also as well with a new show that we're doing next year called Bio. All of our shows are aligned for a particular number of reasons with Saudi government. But the most important reason is we want our shows to have a strategic impact. And you don't grow a show to have a strategic impact in a very short amount of time unless it speaks the language of the government and what their priorities are. It speaks the language of the capital markets and where capital flows are directing towards. And I think that's what you're going to see at this show that you probably didn't see last time. Yes, it spoke the language of the government. Yes, we showed big giga projects, but now we've put so much additional effort and time into getting capital inflow into Saudi Arabia. And right now, as we're talking, we have an investor forum happening upstairs, actually, Rajiv, where you have trillions of dollars, literally trillions of dollars of real estate assets under management, represented by chief investment officers and serious investors from major institutional investors who are over here looking at mega projects and giga projects, funds, and how they can deploy those funds within Saudi. And we've seen that substantially increase from each edition we've done. Remember, we've only done 3 editions. I'll give you an interesting fact. This event used to happen for many, many years in the UAE, in Dubai. And we decided to do the global version of the event in Riyadh because, $1 trillion of infrastructure projects were happening here under Vision 2030. Massive giga projects were being financed and funded. The fun fact about this is within 3 years, this event is now 3 times larger than the largest ever cityscape that's ever happened in any other market. Okay, now that's not me as an event organizer trying to show off about what Tahaluf's been involved in, because Tahaluf will take some of the credit, but can't take anywhere near all the credit. This is me trying to exemplify to you that this market is absolutely thriving. And it is that tailwind, which is the reason why an event like Cityscape is now absolutely at record-breaking levels.
Right. Now, I just like on that point, you mentioned that this is like the 3rd edition. So what sort of learnings you had, like the 1st and 2nd and 3rd, in terms of, the challenges that you had to go through, and how easy or difficult has that become now, that was your 3rd edition?
Well, look, I mean, I could do a 3-part series with you on the challenges that we've had in scaling these events as quickly as we have. We've made loads of mistakes in the past. I'm not ashamed to admit it. One thing I'm very proud about, though, is that we have a 96% retention rate at Tahaluf. Last year, we had a 94% retention rate. When you're scaling the company as fast as we have been, from a couple of people, pretty much, only a few years ago, to next year going into 470 to 500 people. You tend to lose a lot of people on the way, but we haven't lost that many people on the way. That continuity of talent ensures that you don't get a repetition of silly mistakes. You build the experience. You see things that were good and you can then make them great. You see things that were a problem, you can make them not a problem, and then you can make them really an asset.
Right.
I think even if you look at this exhibition center, about 2 years ago, we had unbelievable numbers of people come to LEAP, 215,000 attendants. But it took a long time to get in, it took a long time to get out, and it was difficult to park. The travel time was in the several of hours, sometimes 3-4 hours for people to get in, and it should only take 10 minutes to exit, 10 minutes to enter, and about an hour to get into Riyadh. So it cost people about 3 or 4 hours of their time in some instances. But we learned from that mistake, we learned from that success that caused a problem. As a result, we built the third hall, we built 5,000 extra car parking spaces. We did that by financing and promising a financing deal with a seller who operate this land. They went and finished the infrastructure, and on top of that, we got extra roads built, roads widened, and now you don't have a parking space. You don't have a parking problem. We don't have a traffic problem like we did. So we wouldn't have been able to get to there had we not been able to retain the talent as well. And that's one thing that we've been able to do, and I can say that that is how we continuously improve things year on year. The other ways that we do it is the fact that we are aligned with the government all year round. We meet with the government entities that are responsible for property, real estate, regulation, and also some of the big private sector protagonists. They sit in advisory boards. We don't just make this stuff up. There's a lot of research that happens. They guide us. They say, you know what, here's inside track about something that's going to happen or a major development that's going to happen. We really should be moving the agenda towards that direction, so it's really pertinent and relevant when people.
Okay. Now talking about your other events such as LEAP and Money 2020, how different are those from Cityscape Global? Like, if you want to talk about it.
We have a range of different types of events, but some of them are genuinely globally significant when you talk about the size of the event. So Cityscape, there is no other event of this size in the property market or in real estate. And LEAP, there are some events that have a bigger square meterage, but none have as much of an attendance. And although this is very difficult to track, I would suspect very few of them have as much government participation and government acquisition power and decision-making power than LEAP will, with an event in its same sort of ilk. Now, other events, we have, for example, Super Return, which is very, very famous VC and PE event that happens all around the world, but we've moved an edition of that into Saudi Arabia. Happens every January in Saudi. Now, that's a conference, and it's never going to be a massive exhibition like this, because actually, all of the participants are super powerful and super interesting investors, high net worth individuals. They don't want to come to an event which has everything to offer that we offer at some other events like Cityscape and LEAP. They purely want a very concentrated networking experience, exchange of ideas experience. For them, the word exclusivity matters. But for other shows, we offer a whole breadth and a whole range. And what we call this now in the industry is festivalization. Festivalization is where you turn an event from being something that nobody wants to go to, but they're forced to by their boss, right? To one where actually people are begging their boss to go to. And when I've worked at events for the last 15 years, and I've been to events that, frankly, I felt a bit embarrassed, was part of the portfolio of the company that I was working with. And I thought, why is it that an event, can offer so much more, but doesn't? And the reality is, some companies, they put the profitability of that company first before what the actual market wants, okay? And we've, at Tahaluf, trusted that the market and what they want should should have that service to a really high standard, and then the profits should follow. And I bet our profit margins aren't as good as some of our competitors, but that doesn't matter to me because we have faith that if you follow that model, we'll grow big and substantial events like Cityscape. And I think that's where we are, because in Saudi Arabia in particular, the government here have very high standards. And those high standards, when you meet those high standards, when you meet the challenge of delivering that for them, then that begets more work and it begets more opportunity. So that's why I think is one reason why Tahaluf is doing quite well, because we're known to deliver very high quality events as well.
Okay, last question to you, Mike. What's on the horizon for Tahaluf, say in the next 5 to 10 years, in terms of new events? Absolutely, something.
Where did we come from? We came from a company that, that had a handful of people working in it, looking at Saudi as a potential market, and we've no more than a couple of $1 million of revenue back in 2020, around that time, 2019, right? And then, and where are we now? We're now well over 200 odd $1 million of revenue, and we've seen this year 36-37% revenue growth, and next year I think we'll probably see healthy double-digit revenue growth as well. And part of that growth is going to come from organic growth of our existing portfolio, and I would say about half of that growth is going to come from new launches and bringing in brilliant IPs from abroad. I'm currently in the final discussions with what I would refer to as 2 genuine globally important mega event brands, licensing them and bringing them into the kingdom. And on top of that, there's at least another 4 or 5 events of substance, real substance, that have a big opportunity to grow. Perhaps not as big as Cityscape, perhaps not as big as Leap, but definitely to become, internationally important events in their own sort of field, in their own subject. So that's the sort of medium term. Those events will repeat, they'll continue. From 23 to 25, we made $17.6 billion of economic impact. That's more than the Qatar World Cup. It's more than the Summer Olympics in Paris. We'll continue to make more economic impact as more international business tourists fly to Saudi Arabia. We're going to focus more on that. And on the short-term horizon, we're going to be moving to a new headquarters. So, we're very, very close to signing a deal in a lovely central location, 4,750 meters square of prime real estate, beautiful accommodation for us. It will be one of the Informa groups, because Tahaluf is part of the Informa group. It will be one of their premier offices, I think probably worldwide actually, in terms of how it looks. Such is how important the Saudi market is to Informa, and why Informa has been involved in the Saudi market for almost a decade.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Pleasure
Pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for
Wish you all the best.
Thanks a lot, man. Good stuff.